Hello, my wonderful friends and followers. I would like to share something with you. The Palos Verdes Library District did something absolutely wonderful for the community. They put out an anthology with the best writers on the hill, and that was a common effort, and thank you so much for Kathy Gould, Joshua Peck, and for our wonderful Ashley with her big nice smile, always helping us. I would like to share with you this event that took place yesterday, last night in fact, and some of us got to read from the book, our work, and you are going to hear my modest story called The Little Monster. So enjoy it, and don't forget about the wonderful Palos Verdes Library. The Little Monster. This story is about discrimination and acceptance of people who are different from us. The delivery room's harsh lights blinded Elena. When the baby slipped out, the circle of faces above her changed to expressions of horror. One nurse burst out, "Oh my God! What's this?" The doctor cut her off. "Control yourself, nurse. Don't scare the patient. Whatever it is, go and clean it up. We'll deal with it later." Elena tried to make a desperate attempt to raise herself and see what was going on, but she felt weak and groggy, so she fell back on the gurney, exhausted, and drifted off into a deep, deep sleep. When Elena opened her eyes in her private room, her first words were, "The baby! Where is my baby?" The nurse cleared her throat and softly said, "Miss Johnson, we need to talk." "What's wrong? Is my baby dead?" There was a painful silence except for the ticking of the clock on the wall. The nurse locked her steel blue eyes into Elena's. "The baby is alive, but it's very severely deformed. Honestly, it looks more like a monster than a human baby." Elena gasped for a second, then burst into tears. "I don't care. I need to see my baby. I want to hold it in my arms. Is it a boy or a girl?" "It's a boy, but it would be in your best interest not to see it at all." "I don't care what the baby looks like. It's part of me, and he needs a mother's care more than being tossed away into an institution. I want to hold it in my arms right now." "As you wish, but after seeing it, I am sure you'll change your mind." The nurse disappeared and shortly returned holding a bundle in her arms. What lay now in Elena's lap was a lobster-red mass of flesh, rounded like Humpty Dumpty, with no hands or feet. No, she was wrong. There were two tiny feet with no thighs that seemed to grow out of the rounded stomach, covered with long black hair like the body of an orangutan. Where the hands were supposed to be, Elena saw two atrophied wing-like limbs that had tiny little fingers grown from them. Not 5, but 6 fingers. The head was attached to the rounded stomach without a neck, and it was bald like a shiny marble, but the red flesh everywhere else was covered with a thick layer of hair that made him look like a wild beast. The baby's face was wrinkled, and it looked like an old, old man. It had deformed cleft lips, and as he opened a big orifice ready to cry, there were 3 big teeth gaping at her. The nurse was right. This was not a human baby. "Don't you worry," the nurse broke the silence. Tomorrow you go home as if nothing happened. What are you going to do with it? We'll keep it alive as long as we can in an institution. As a ward of state, he might be eligible for some posthumous research. The little monster, as if he understood, flapped around his wing-like arms, found his mother's pinky, and his tiny fingers wrapped around and clutched with desperation. Elena's heart filled with compassion. "I'll keep the baby," she replied. "And now, leave us alone for a while." As soon as the nurse closed the door behind, Elena jumped out of bed, got dressed, and snuck out of the room with the little bundle in her arms. She crouched down in the hallway in order to pass the nursing station and leave the hospital without being seen. No, her baby wasn't going to be discarded like a piece of meat to conduct experiments on. Over my dead body, she thought. Life with her special son was much harder than what Elena had anticipated. She had a small family inheritance that provided some temporary financial security. Since going out or dating was out of question, she devoted her time to homeschool her handicapped child and was amazed of how bright her little one turned out to be. By age 3, he had the vocabulary of a 5th grader, and he would write and spell. Despite his speech impediment due to his cleft palate, the child's rich vocabulary was astonishing. To Elena, his wrinkled face, bald head, and his hairy body wasn't repulsive anymore. My son's amazing gift and cheerful disposition largely compensate for his physical deficiency, she thought. It's such a shame that others cannot see him the way I do. Together, they often watched films and TV shows made for children, but Elena carefully avoided those that even mentioned of monsters. Since mirrors were banned from the house, her son never saw his own reflection. Therefore, he just assumed that he looked just like all the other little boys on TV or in the rented movies. One Sunday afternoon, after walking home from the grocery store, Elena found the front door open and her child gone. She ran outside in panic. Her eyes caught something at the park across the street. A bunch of children were swarming around a rounded object on the floor, beating it with baseball bats and shouting, "Kill the monster! Kill the monster!" Elena got hold of a stick and ran across the park to chase away the cruel kids. She scooped up the bloody little mass of flesh and ran back to the safety of her home to bandage up the battered body of her helpless, crippled child. But what could she possibly do to heal his emotional scars? Would this change his kind and trusting nature into one of anger, mistrust, or even hatred? The outside world was so cruel and unforgiving, and he was so vulnerable. And what would happen if Elena should die in an accident? Who would protect him? Who would love him? People judge others by their looks. Nobody would take the time to discover this handicapped child's inner beauty. Nobody but a mother, she thought, wiping her tears. There was no time for sorrow. She had to be strong. His squeaky little voice interrupted her thinking. "Mommy, Mommy, why did those children beat me up? All I wanted was to play with them, but they ran away from me screaming, and they came back with baseball bat to hurt me. They called me a monster and they wanted to kill me. Mommy, what's a monster? The word monster was banned from Elena's household, just like mirrors, except for Elena's bathroom, which she kept the child locked out of. Was she overprotecting him? She feared that tragedy was awaiting him on the other side of the front door, just like today. Keeping him prisoner was the only thing she could do to protect her child. But was it fair to him? Maybe this was the time to start preparing him for life beyond the gates. Elena lifted up his rounded and shriveled up little body, held him against her heart, and carried him to her bathroom. Next, she asked him to turn around and look at himself in a mirror. As the child turned his head and faced the mirror, his eyes grew wide and pushed a horrific scream. Then he buried his hairy little face into his mother's shoulder. "Mommy, Mommy, what's that?" he asked, still shaking. "That's what insensitive people call a monster," Elena replied quietly. "What's a monster doing in our house?" "He lives here." "How come I never seen him before?" "Because you've never looked in the mirror." "But you were there too, and you were holding it like you're holding me. Mom, I'm scared." "Scared of what?" "Of the monster." Why? Why are you scared?" "Because it looks mean and ugly. He might want to kill me." "Now, are you mean and ugly, or are you a nice little boy?" "Oh, I am nice. You always said so, Mommy." "Now, could you kill somebody?" "Oh, no, I never could do that. You always told me that every life is precious and how much we must respect it." "Good. Now, do you remember what I also told you about the apples?" "Oh, yes, Mommy, yes. A beautiful red apple might be rotten inside, and ugly apples could be good inside and have the best taste of ever." "Yes, little one. The same goes for people. Some people may look beautiful from the outside, but they might be like the rotten apple inside, selfish, heartless, and full of hatred for others. On the other hand, some people might look ugly or might even be missing an eye or a leg, but they are loving, kind, and compassionate to others in their hearts. Some might even look as frightening as the little monster in my arms that you saw earlier, yet they might be as loving and warm and intelligent as you are, my precious. Therefore, we should never, ever judge people by the way they look, okay?" "Okay, Mommy." What if you looked like the little monster in the mirror that you saw earlier? Would it change you? Would it change who you are deep inside? "Oh, no, it wouldn't." "Now, could you get to love it, knowing what a good person the monster is inside his heart?" "Oh, I don't know. Maybe." "Do you want to take a second look at the monster?" "Oh, no. It took several more years of patience, love, and hard work for Elena to explain her son who he was and make him fully accept himself. Elena often had tears in her eyes, realizing the brilliant mind in the slowly deteriorating, crippled body of his son. He couldn't walk on his own anymore. Being now wheelchair-bound, he understood that he had to rely more and more on his mother's help to survive. One day, he absent-mindedly forgot to turn off the stove. It burned near a pile of newspaper that caught a spark and ignited. The fire spread so rapidly that when Elena ran across to rescue him, a part of the roof collapsed, knocking her to the floor. She was unconscious, but still breathing. Her handicapped son had two choices: save himself by wheeling himself out the door just a few feet away, or stay to save his mother by risking his own life. I wouldn't be able to survive without her, he thought. Then I'll just have to try to save my mom, who gave up her life to raise me. And he did. Elena opened her eyes on the hospital bed and took a look for the first time at her bright, sunny private room. A handsome, blue-eyed stranger sat beside her, holding her hand. "Who are you?" she asked with a feeble voice. "My name is Derek Brown. I am one of the firefighters who rescued you." He smiled with pride. "You've been in a coma for 3 weeks. "My son! Where is my son?" she asked in panic. "There was a charred body in a wheelchair next to you. He didn't make it. I am sorry. But somebody pushed you through the door with the help of a charred piece of lumber. That saved your life." Derek bent over her and softly wiped away her tears. "We gave him a decent burial." Many years later, Elena contemplated the falling leaves outside of her window from her country cottage. It's been so long since she lost her first child, but she felt his undying love through the years. Did he die by accident, or did he choose it deliberately in order to give her back her life? She couldn't stop thinking about it. Her husband's voice called her back to reality. "Elena, children, come to the table. Dinner is ready." "Thank you for cooking tonight, Derek," she replied.
It was such a privilege to hear, Ildi, your little monster story. You know, it kind of reflects back. All of us have that, what I call the wins factor. You know, we see someone disabled or we see someone different to us, and even though we might be tolerant, we have this reaction. It's just a human reaction. And in your little monster story, you reflected that back at us and made us all think a little more about how important it is just not to go by appearances. Everybody's got their God-given talents, such as your little baby who is such a gifted child intellectually. And so there's a wonderful lesson learned in just a few thousand words. You moved us all in this room, and you certainly brought tears to my eyes. It was a real pleasure. Thanks for sharing your short story with us. I loved it.
Well, Ildi, I couldn't leave without telling you how much I absolutely loved what you wrote. I thought it was so moving.
And that really hit me like science fiction. Your thing just really touched me. What I know of you and your background and your singing, totally unexpected.
And
wonderful.
You're the greatest pop star of all time and one of the greatest authors of this century.
Talking to people, having workshops, having write-ins, having local author fair, what else did we do? We did all kinds of things for this. So we hope that you really enjoyed the whole process. We hope that you enjoyed the community and the fellowship of meeting some fellow writers, and we hope that you enjoy the anthology, the ones who qualified who got tonight. So tonight is just kind of a celebration for finishing the whole project. So we've got snacks, you've got your books, and we're going to have a reading with about 10 or so people. And Ashley and I pulled the names out of a hat. So if you're mad at anyone for not being able to read, blame that hat that we used.
That was great. I just wanted to take a moment to recognize Joshua's hard work in compiling and getting It's just a beautiful book. Thank you for sharing. So the next writer, authors, you can still check this book out at the library. So you can check out all the fine writings in it. Joshua initially wanted me to help him to edit and take care of everything.
Tight around the eyes, verging on tears. My boy, our future in the German Democratic Republic is bleak, said father. State Council Chairman Ulbricht claims there's no intention to erect a wall. Well, I don't believe him. The features on father's face softened momentarily, then he shattered my world.
Actually, a memoir titled Romancing the Lion. I had a farm in Arkansas on the outskirts of Fayetteville. And on that farm I had half a dozen Arabian horses, a comparable number of pygmy goats, a mixed quarter horse Welsh pony, and a donkey. In addition to an homage to Karen Blixen and Old MacDonald, I had a beautiful little Victorian home built in 1890, located in the historic section of town.
On the northwest coast of California, near the Fort Ross area, can be hazardous due to its jagged rocks and treacherous undertows, but nothing near the experience I'm about to share. Early one summer morning, my partner and I quickly kicked away from the rocks at the point of entry and swam through cold, heavy breakers.
The door opened, and a tired-looking woman in a long tweed skirt and an orange scarf got out. She looked back into the car and said, "Come along now, we are here." Peter muttered, "Dirty Germans, lousy Krauts." Mom put a hand over his mouth and whispered, "I'm counting on you."
Changes in the health and well-being of my fellow laughers, as well as in myself. I consider my weekly laughter yoga session to be my official happy place. As for world peace, a quote from Alan Alda, the star of the 70s TV series MASH, says it all. When people are laughing, they're generally not killing each other.
It's time, he seemed to say, tail up, head down, as he splashed back into the surging current. The weather had changed. The sky was heavy with threatening clouds. The throbbing of the rapids around the bend made walking through the slippery rocks